This is Church Pew Sports,
Who's got it better than us?
where we connect sports to life and faith.
Could you repeat that first part?
Take a knee,
Absolutely glorious.
lend an ear,
I believe it's going to be for the best.
then get ready to laugh, listen, and learn.
How about you announce that you're getting better?
No matter your team, your favorite sport,
Bowling. Bowling's insane. Bowling is crazy time.
we cover it all here on Church Pew Sports.
And we want to pump you up.
Gentlemen, start your engines, brothers.
And away we go with another episode of Church Pew Sports, where we connect sports to life and faith and have a really fun time doing it. Good to have you all with us here as we record on this 29th day of May, 2026. Bill Hobson here, along with Pastor Paul Miller, who joins us from his Minneapolis broadcast headquarters. And we do anticipate David Collins joining us here at some point, but we need to get underway because we have a lot of ground to cover today. And Paul, I have a surprise for you before we get going into this. I don't know if you're up for surprise,
Sure.
but the last episode we did was the first time we ever live streamed the video of this whole mess coming together on Church Pew's Facebook and YouTube channels, right? You're aware of that. It was kind of fun to do it that way. We had a lot of engagement in the live chat, which we would invite again here tonight. Well, one person who I don't know, his username on YouTube is Tim Hall 5382, sent one of those kind of notes that just kind of blesses your heart. And I thought that I would share it with you because I know that as we get into this episode, it's always good to have some encouraging words from a member of the audience as we continue trying to grow Church Pew Sports. And if David does join us, I'll make sure I roll him into this as well, because I don't want him to miss this. And I quote, 7 minutes in, and they are blabbering about nothing. Total waste of time. And I say, Tim, thank you. Thank you for listening for those 7 minutes. That might be a new record for us, Paul. I'm encouraged. How about you?
I kind of think that's the point of the podcast, is to talk about sports, which one could argue is a whole lot of nothing. It's entertainment and it matters to us, but none of it has any eternal significance whatsoever. And so I'm not offended at all by that comment. I actually think, thanks for, it's like Seinfeld, right? A whole lot of nothing.
Show about nothing. And I would expect to have similar comments in light of this episode, but we are going to have some fun. And I don't even know, well, actually, I should take that back. I was going to say I don't know what the original inspiration was for this topic today, but I do. And that was the passing of Red Wings arch nemesis, Claude Lemieux, the Colorado Avalanche player, and the historic brawl between he and McCarty after the cheap shot on Chris Draper years ago. And this is in the 90s. And around Red Wings country, this is still celebrated in April. It is still a part of the everyday conversation. And so in a few moments, we are going to dive into the ranking of the greatest sports villains of all time. And earlier today in our group chat, I just threw it out there, and man, oh man, the Church Pew Sports group chat went nuts with suggestions. So I can't wait to read some of these. But first, what we want to do in order to stay really timely for you is take a couple of minutes, with apologies to Mr. Hall. We'll probably take 7 minutes or so to blabber about nothing and cover some of the highlights of this past week in the world of sports, kind of picking up, first of all, Paul, on where we focused last week in the highly anticipated enhanced games. What do you have?
Yeah, the enhanced games were a big, huge, nothing burger. I think, the whole idea, for those of you that didn't listen to the episode from last week, was they staged some Olympic events, swimming, sprinting, weightlifting, and they said, you take all the PEDs you want. In fact, we'll make doctors available to oversee your process of juicing and all that kind of stuff. And they touted it as, hey, the guys are going to come and obliterate world records and everything else. Well, there was one guy, a swimmer from Greece named Christian Golomeyev, who did beat the official world record in the 50 free by 0.07. But he was wearing, not only was he juicing, he was wearing one of those polyurethane swimming bodysuits that got outlawed for international competitions. So way to go, man. You wore the suit and you took the drugs and you beat the world record time by 0.07. It's not official in any way, shape, or form, right? But that was the only performance that did so. Every other performance, no other performance came close to beating any official world record. Interestingly, some of the athletes who said they were there competing clean, not taking any PEDs, posted personal bests and beat the enhanced athletes, right? We kind of saw that one coming. The one kind of marquee event was the 100-meter dash, and Fred Curley was the guy from the U.S. who was like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to obliterate Usain Bolt's long-standing 9.58 seconds for the 100 meters or whatever. And Curley won the event, which got him a cool $250,000, but he ran 9.97, which is not his best time. So I think he was actually telling the truth that he wasn't juicing, but he didn't come close to breaking Usain Bolt's record. So what do the enhanced games owners do? They come out and say, in 2027, when the enhanced games are back, we're going to up the prize money for anyone that can beat Usain Bolt's world record in the 100 meters to $10 million.
Wow.
They've got a lot of drug money from these companies that want PEDs to become like just part of the standard operating procedure in the world of sports, right? So they're throwing the money in, and they're thinking that's going to incentivize a whole bunch of athletes to say, hey, if I take the right PEDs for the right amount of time, maybe I can break that world record. And who cares what people think of me? I'm going to walk away with $10 million. A little bit crazy.
Yeah. Can you imagine the amount of substances these athletes will be pumping into themselves with this dream, and then how many injuries will come while they're training? I mean, you can't, even though you can do things for your circulation and your lungs and all in recovery time, your Achilles is still your Achilles. Your hamstring is still your calf muscles and all those different things. So that'll be a very intriguing situation. But for all the money that they're putting up, to hold this thing on a Memorial weekend when all of America is finally able to enjoy a 3-day, what are you doing? I mean, somebody's got to, it's like they're being programmed by the team at Live Golf. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then we had some SEC meetings take place because it just means more in the SEC. What did we learn from that gathering?
Yeah, there's a theme here, Bill. There was a whole lot of smoke and not a lot of substance coming out of the SEC meetings down in Destin, Florida. You know, they had already decided before this week that they were going to go to a 9-game league schedule, up it from 8 to 9, which was going to make their schedules so much more difficult. So Cupcake Week is gone.
Right.
You know, the tradition in the SEC of scheduling Little Sisters of the Poor for the week before the rivalry week in college football, that's gone. We did learn that coaches are not unified. There are many that are in favor of a 2014 playoff, which I get. In fact, there's this great quote from Mike Elko, the coach at Texas A&M, and he goes, here's his quote, "What does Mike Elko want? 40. Then I won't get fired. It's okay to make it hard to get – it's okay to – he's talking tongue-in-cheek, but then he says – none of us coaches are answering for the good of the sport. We're only answering for the good of ourselves." It's like a moment of clarity from Mike Elko.
He's absolutely
so well done. So threats of the SEC breaking away and forming their own governance deal and all these other things. Again, a whole lot of smoke, a whole lot of nothing. They didn't provide any official announcement on where they stand as a conference on the 2014 CFP proposal because there's division in the ranks.
Yeah.
And the coaches don't all agree with each other, and they're trying to keep that under wraps. So there's your update from the SEC meetings this week.
Sure. And then we, by the way, I have one quick news update piece, and that is the Tigers are still terrible. Now we can go on to to what's happening in the NBA. We're about to have a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals. It's been a really fun series.
Yeah.
And at the same time that all that's going on in the background, Commissioner Silver is trying to figure out how to take care of and eliminate tanking. He's not that worried about flopping for some reason, but he's worried about tanking. So they have a new NBA draft lottery format. And Paul, give us the simplified version, because sometimes these things get way too confusing.
Yes, here's the simplified new draft lottery. It's expanded to 16 teams. So all the teams that make the play-in games for the playoffs are still eligible for the draft lottery. The bottom 3 teams, the teams that finish in the last 3 positions in the standings from the regular season, have worse odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. So that's their effort to try and discourage tanking. Like, you really get penalized for finishing in the bottom 3. You cannot have a top 5 pick for 3 straight years. That's not allowed anymore. So like the Spurs, right, who have Wemby and Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, those are all top 5 picks from the last 3 drafts. That will not happen again. I don't think it fixes tanking. I definitely don't think it addresses load management, which is the other major issue going on in the NBA right now. So it was a really good swing. Adam Silver, a lot of smoke, not a lot of substance.
That's the theme of the headlines of the week.
Yeah.
So as we dive into our primary topic, and by the way, let me just check something real quick. We spent about 7 minutes on that, just as our YouTube commenter said. So now we'll get into the real stuff. Hopefully he's listening at the 8-minute mark. I want to make sure that that everybody understands this up front. The passing of Claude Lemieux is a sad thing. It from all reports, it appears as if he took his own life, right? And we'll hear a little bit of commentary from Darren McCarty on that, of all people. But just wanted to let you know, we're not making fun of that. We're going to have some fun in the category of sports villains, but we're certainly not poking fun at the passing of Claude Lemieux and perhaps those circumstances, which, man, that's awful and that's sad. And by the way, if for whatever reason, any of you are having a very difficult time with your mental state and your health, and you're just feeling kind of desperate, please know you matter. I'll say this right at the front. Here's our other headline. You matter. If there's anything we can do to help you, please reach out, whether it's on socials or wherever it is, because you do matter. And we don't want to hear any more stories like that. And Paul, I had a friend from the Saginaw area 2 weeks ago now take his own life, and it completely shocked everybody who knew him. And so these things are pretty heavy on my mind. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's not the way, right? So having said that, Claude Lemieux is in these parts what we think of when we think of sports villains. Now, we'll get into the extended list of other choices, many of which involve Detroit Pistons over the course of the years. But first and foremost, for those of you who are not as entrenched in the Red Wings and Avalanche lore, the rivalry, we are now back a long time ago when Claude Lemieux blindsides Red Wing Chris Draper in the back. He boards him with a cross check to the, between the shoulder blades, face first into the sideboards. Mm-hmm. When I say he destroys Draper's face, that is not an exaggeration. Drapes had his jaw wired shut, and he was drinking meals through a straw for 8 weeks during multiple reconstructive surgeries. Yeah. And in the hockey world, not only is that super poor etiquette and sportsmanship and all those things, but them's fighting words. Paul, I don't know if there's another league that has more of a sense of frontier justice than the NHL, but that was coming.
Yeah. And the receipts lasted, right? The justice came the following season. Right. And I have the picture framed and up on the wall in my office. I don't know what that says about me, that's a picture that I choose to hang on my sports memorabilia wall. But as a Red Wings fan, yeah, it was a big, big deal.
It was multiple games later. It wasn't the next game. I don't even think it was 2 games later. And there are probably some Red Wing fans who are yelling at me exactly how many games it was and the date that it was. This is what it sounded like when McCarty decided this is the time.
Now Darren McCarty
Gets his shots in at Claude Lemieux. And look who came all the way out to try to help. Patrick Waugh. My goodness. Aaron McCarty said before. Vernon and Waugh. Mike Vernon with a great lift. Follows up. How about this? Lemieux was hammered by Darren McCarty, and he is being helped into the locker room. They are on their feet here at Joe Louis Arena.
Yes, they were. And Paul, the picture that you have probably is of Lemieux on his knees in front of the sideboard with blood dripping down the sideboards and McCarty standing. I don't know if that's the exact frame that you have, but that was one of the indelible images. And DMAC has been dining out on that moment ever since.
Yeah, the picture I have on my wall is Lemieux in the turtle position and McCarty just over the top of him, right? And this is where, as a hockey fan, there's this part of you that comes out that you're like not proud of. But that night, that fight night at the Joe in '97 was crazy. I remember where I was when I watched the game. I remember Patrick Waugh, who was one of the villains from the Avalanche, skating out to center ice to try and get in the action, and Brendan Shanahan meeting him halfway.
Yeah.
There's fights everywhere. Larionov and Forsberg going in. I mean, it was mayhem, and Lemieux got it. He got it good.
And he did. And that's, as I said a moment ago, that's kind of what fueled our conversation about sports villains.
Yeah.
To put a kind of a bow tie on that particular one, he and McCarty, they kind of reconciled years later in retirement. They began appearing together at card shows because they would sign those posters and they would sign things together. They were making some money off of it. And I remember an interview a few years ago where McCarty was asked more about it. It's obviously he's frequently asked about it. And he actually said, this is a good guy who made a bad decision, and we didn't like him at the time. He said, but he is a human, and they became friends.
Yeah.
And so when the news broke of Claude's passing, DMAC had a few things to share.
Just found out a little while ago about Claude Lemieux. For all yous out there, isn't it apropos that I found out before it was released from 33? Chris Draper told me. Sad day. Other brother gone. All I'm going to say at this point, and I can say a lot of things, and I will, but if you're struggling out there, no matter what, just reach out for some help. It can never be that bad. So it's a sad day, no matter what. Rest in peace, Claude.
So powerful stuff, right? From guys who were literally swinging at each other and knocking each other's teeth out, and realizing now that life and death is bigger than that. So we'll take Claude and we'll set him into our list of potential villain champions off to the side. But I don't think on a national scale he's anywhere close to being number one. He's on a regional scale. So, Paul, take us through some of the criteria, the categories that you came up with, and then we'll start digging into some names.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, there's different types of villains, right? And so I was like, well, if we're going to have this conversation fully, what are three or four categories that we could put villains in? So here's the categories, right? There are villains because of their style of play, the way they compete in their sport. They're dirty, they're accused of being dirty, whatever, and that's what earns them villain status. There are villains who are a villain to you because they play for your hated rival.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, whether it's the Bears, Packers, or the Buckeyes, Wolverines, or whatever the rivalry might be, there are people who become villains in your world as a sports fan because they play for the other guys. Right. It has nothing to do necessarily with how they play. It's just they play for the wrong team. And then there are guys and gals who become villains because they cheated.
Yeah.
They broke the rules and got caught and compromised the integrity of the sport. And then lastly, well, there are 5 categories. I have a mystery category for you that I didn't want to give you ahead of time. The fourth one is there are folks who become villains because they're just so dang successful. They win and they win and they win, and fans just become tired of watching them win. So they end up, in a weird way, becoming a villain. Probably not in their hometown or in the town of the team that they play for, but across the rest of the country, they just become villains because they're so good, and we become tired of watching them win. So those were the main 4 categories. I can give you the bonus category if you want, Bill, so you can be thinking.
Yeah, I need to, you told me one of them is going to really grab me the wrong way. I can't wait for this one. So is this the moment?
Well, there are names on my list that you're going to get angry at me for, but the 5th category we have to have. Yeah. This is, I'll just tip my hand a little bit. This is the LeBron category. These are people who become villains because of their attitude, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk about themselves, their lack of humility, and those kind of things. It's just another way that someone can become a villain, right? So it can be because they have a dirty style of play. It can be because they play for the wrong team. It can be because they cheated. It can be because they're successful, or because they just have a prideful attitude.
Yeah, and boy, a lot of names pop into mind. Let's go through some of those that are on both of our lists and those that have been sent in to us. And by the way, if you are watching the live stream right now on Facebook or YouTube for Church Pew, feel free to jump right in the chat, and we'll read your thoughts in the chat. It's so strange, Paul. I do not care at all about figure skating. I just don't care. I don't care. I can't imagine the last time. I can't think of the last time I paid any attention to figure skating, because judged sports just drive me nuts. But for some reason, when we agreed on this topic of sports villains, the first name that came to my mind was Tonya Harding. Not because I was a huge Nancy Kerrigan fan, although the whole thing did happen in Detroit at Joe Louis Arena. I don't know if people remember that. It was the U.S. Figure Skating Nationals to determine who got to go to the Olympics, and that's why Harding hired 2 goons to attack Nancy Kerrigan backstage at Joe Louis Arena. I happen to have an older friend. Her son is the director of Hiawatha Youth Camp. She was there that night with her husband. And of course, nobody knew anything. But when she got home, she was stunned by all the news. This is back in 1994. And it still resonates for how truly bizarre the whole thing was. Now, a lot of you are far too young to remember anything in 1994. So I grabbed a 2-minute summation from the CBS Sunday morning show. I think Jane Pauley might be the narrator of this. I'm just going to let this take you through what happened that night in Detroit.
And now a page from our Sunday Morning Almanac, January 6th, 1994, 25 years ago today, the day the genteel sport of figure skating became a media circus. For that was the day an assailant clubbed Nancy Kerrigan on the leg as she left the ice after practice at the U.S. Olympic trials in Detroit.
Someone was running by me and he just whacked me with this long black stick.
The attack plunged Kerrigan's Olympic dreams into doubt and focused suspicion on rival skater Tonya Harding.
How are you feeling right now?
It's been a long week.
Within days, Harding's estranged husband, Jeff Gillooly, was arrested, along with 3 other men. Harding herself, on the other hand, proclaimed her innocence.
I may have some bad points about me, but overall, I think I'm a pretty good person.
After weeks in the media spotlight, Kerrigan and Harding faced off at the Olympics in Lillehammer, Norway. Despite her injuries, Kerrigan won silver, while Harding, who had problems with her skate laces, finished well out of the running.
I'm accepting a plea of guilty.
Harding later pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution, receiving 3 years probation and a $100,000 fine. In a final blow, the U.S. Figure Skating Association banned her for life.
And Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan in that moment will forever be remembered by this sound from backstage.
Relax.
That's Nancy Kerrigan's sitting on the floor, holding her knee and just screaming, why? And it was pretty shrill, obviously. So you don't want to listen to it too much because it's like nails on a blackboard. But for some reason, Paul, that has always been at the top of my villainous ranking. And the weird part is it's for a sport I care nothing about. So your turn.
That was number one for you, and that would be in the category of because they cheated. I think that was cheating.
Because they're just not nice people.
Yeah. Okay, so when we started talking about this episode, the number one name for me at the top of my list was Bill Laimbeer.
I thought so.
Which I've told you before. I back in the day when the Bulls and the Pistons were going at it, I never had an issue really with Laimbeer. In fact, I kind of respected the fact that he just played his role and did it with excellence and everything else. But he was definitely the villain. He was the face of the bad boys, and he was the one most likely to clobber Jordan when he came down the lane or whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's funny to me how some folks who are villains are revered in their hometown, right? Because Laimbeer would be a little bit style of play, but also for me because he played for a rival, like the Bulls and Pistons were big rivals back in the day and everything else. And so had this weird kind of admiration for the physicality that he played with, but I despised him because he was a member of the Pistons. Here's the hypocrisy of that in full flight, right? Like Dennis Rodman could probably fall in that same category. And then he came to the Bulls and helped the Bulls win 3 more rings. And so go figure. All of a sudden, Rodman jumps categories for me, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny how that works.
Here's a special Laimbeer memory for everybody.
Jordan lost Vinnie Johnson, and Laimbeer just fired at Jordan. Michael doesn't like it. And now Woolridge is telling Laimbeer to get away. Stan Albeck, losing his cool, comes charging across the floor. Daly says, Stan, get on your chair. And now Daly and Albeck. How do you like this? When do you ever see this? Chuck Daly wants a piece of Stan Albeck.
Yep.
And now Vinnie Johnson. Stan Albeck had no business being on the other end of the floor, even though he's protecting the superstar. And Daly said, get out of my end of the floor. Now the crowd is riled.
And I would venture to guess, Paul, that not one person out of 1,000 would remember that Stan Albrecht ever coached Michael Jordan, but he did try to take up for him there. And part of the Jordan rules that Chuck Daly, Isaiah, Laimbeer, Mahorn, Rodman, Vinny, and Joe D, James Buddha Edwards, Sally, that they all came up with, the Jordan rules were when he comes in the paint, he hits the floor. That was the Jordan rules. Yeah. We'll go ahead and we're going to let Pippen beat us. We'll let Hodges beat us. We'll let whoever, but Michael's not going to beat us. And for a while it worked because they were literally beating him up. And I think that's why Laimbeer probably doesn't go out to dinner a lot in the city of Chicago these days.
Yeah, maybe we should just kind of close the loop on the Bad Boys era Pistons and let you know that maybe this is like a snake draft. So I get 2 picks now because you got the first pick.
Okay, but let me just say one thing in defense of my buddy Laimbeer. Because in high school, his poster was the one on my wall and in my locker. Seriously, it really was. And now, in the year of our Lord 2026, where big men are expected to be able to hang out on the perimeter and hit threes, whether it's Karl Anthony Towns, whether it's Wemby, Garnett did this. Laimbeer was the first big to spread the floor. And back in his era, I was just texting this to a young friend of mine who was like, why was everybody so fond of this era? And so I was telling him, because there was such a thing as illegal defense being called if you weren't on your man, which meant Laimbeer could play 22 feet from the basket and Patrick Ewing would have to follow him, or Hakeem Olajuwon would have to follow him. And suddenly look what happens in the paint. It's wide open because back then it was a technical foul if you were more than 5 feet away from the guy you were assigned to cover. It's a different world now. And I would argue it's not a better world. So anyways, there was some good that Laimbeer did. and he was ahead of his time from an outside shooting standpoint. But man, was he despised by everybody. And I just loved it. I just reveled in it.
Yeah, for sure. Here's another one for you, right?
Yeah,
We're still with the bad boys. Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah,
Which
I totally
there was really nobody else on the Pistons that I got like frustrated with or angry at besides Laimbeer and Thomas. And I've already said I didn't really have that big of an issue with how Laimbeer played the game. But Isaiah Thomas, so here's a little bit of backstory for you, Bill, that you probably don't know. I played high school basketball, and we made it to the super sectionals a couple of my years, and we played Isaiah Thomas's high school in Chicago in the playoffs, got smoked resoundingly both times. He was already gone because I'm younger than him, right? But I have no reason to dislike Isaiah Thomas other than he played for the Pistons.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history between him and who's my favorite player of all time in the NBA, of course, Michael Jordan, right? And so there's all the dream team stuff and all that, you know.
That's why the last dance was so much fun to watch for both of us, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely it was.
Neither side has let go of any of that.
No, and it's like who's living more rent-free in the other person's head? They probably both are, you know. And so Isaiah Thomas is on the list for me, even though growing up as a kid that out in the suburbs of Chicago, he was a bit of a legend, you know, and everything else. And then when Jordan came along, all of a sudden he became a villain for me. So there you go.
Here's Scott Tinman checking in. He says, hey there, Laimbeer, or any of the Duke guys, Leitner, Reddick, or Allen, Grayson Allen. Totally agree with that. Leitner would be under the category, Paul, I think that you went to earlier. That was probably because of their success and because of their arrogance. That was your category. You know, Leitner was a really good player. Man, if I could call Josh Gilmer up, who goes to Duke right now, and ask him, he would probably say, yeah, I understand that. JJ Redick in that same category. So Tinman's definitely picking some popular players. But Grayson Allen on that list, by the way, would have to be there because he's this dirty player. He was then a dirty player, and in the league, he's still a dirty player.
Yeah, we need to talk to Brian Sharp, who was in the group chat today, because he knows Christian Laettner.
Oh.
And he knew him from when he was younger. Like I think his brother played high school basketball against Laettner or something like that. And now he knows him, like in adulthood, when he's not really Christian Laettner, the Duke basketball star, dream team, add-on guy, or any of that stuff. He's just like a dude in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And has a very different story to tell about who he is now. So it's just kind of interesting.
All right, I jumped in front of you. Sorry, your snake draft means you get another pick after Laimbeer. Was okay. Isaiah that other pick?
Well, that was what I was thinking, but I got a lot of them chambered. So if you want me to keep going, I easily can.
Well, I'm going to jump in with my next one in my list of sports villains and give you Karl Malone, Utah Jazz. He's very often overlooked in the villainous role, but in a meeting with the Pistons when Isaiah was just destroying John Stockton, Isaiah drove to the basket once, and Malone just elbowed him right in the eye, gave him like 38 stitches or something, which Isaiah went and got and came back and finished the game. Yeah. And subsequent to all of that, obviously that's a long time ago, subsequent to all of that, Malone has since apologized for it, said he did it on purpose, but his personal conduct since then, in like a legal sense, has gotten really sketchy, talking about some underage things and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and put Karl Malone somewhere in my list.
I did not know any of that other stuff about Malone. I just know that the Bulls are what stood in the way of him ever getting a ring.
Yeah,
that's all.
I was thankful for that. I like the Bulls at that point. Who's your next one?
Okay, the next one for me. Well, we're going to leave the NBA for a minute. I'm going to go a couple of names that popped in the chat earlier today, A-Rod and Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball. And I'm assuming that's because they were in the enhanced games. They were ahead of their time playing in the enhanced games in Major League Baseball. Here's my question. Why not Sammy Sosa? Why do I never hear anybody talk about Sosa as
McGuire
villain, but they talk about A-Rod and Barry Bonds all the time?
Or McGuire.
Or Mark McGuire. Yeah, what's the difference?
I don't know. They were likable. They were nice guys. And I will long remember Sammy Sosa being called to testify in front of a congressional hearing where he suddenly, after doing multiple interviews in rather, I won't say fluent, but certainly understandable English, he all of a sudden claims that he doesn't understand English in the presence of the congressional hearing. And you're like, oh, this isn't even a good attempt at lying. And then Mark McGuire just sat there in front of them and committed perjury. And I guess if it had been something that mattered in real life, he might have gotten in trouble for that. He has since admitted that he lied to Congress. And the last time I checked, that was a problem, except, well, I guess I can go off on that tangent because Congress can lie to us, remember, kids, but we can't lie to them. So I don't know why, Paul, because those two guys, other than not being in the Hall of Fame, skated scot-free for the same infractions that Bonds and A-Rod committed.
Yeah, makes no sense to me, but those guys are on my list. Those are my baseball representatives on my list, right? So
we got some really good nominations from Pastor Josh Pardee, joined us in the chat earlier. He's got some Bobby Knight. He's got Aaron Rodgers, David Stern, Ron Artest. Let's talk Ron Artest for a minute. Meta World Peace, Ron Artest. The Malice at the Palace. I don't know what to do with him in this category. He's obviously unhinged and in zero control of his emotions and his anger at that time. Now, perhaps the change to Meta World Peace as his legal name was a byproduct of the Malice at the Palace. I don't know. But I have heard Reggie Miller say numerous times that after all of that happened, like that same night, when the police had to escort all of the Pacers back to the locker room because it was ugly at the Palace.
Yeah.
Ron was sitting in his locker and Reggie was sitting next to him, and Ron looked at him and said, "You think we might get in trouble?" Like, meant it seriously. And Reggie's like, "Yeah, dude, I think our franchise is done for the season." And they were a contender for the title. And Ron has always been sort of in a Rodman kind of mentality, or at least maturity level. Do you put him on your villain list, or do you just put him on your disturbed guys that need some help list?
Yeah, this is where it's the whole, because you played for a rival, right? Like the Malice at the Palace was a headline that I remember hearing about and going, oh, wow, there's a brawl. And that was kind of the extent of it for me because I was not a Pistons fan, right, at the time. So I wouldn't have Artest on my list, but I totally understand why you would, And I think it's partially because of his attitude and partially because of his style of play and partially because he played for a rival, or at least a rival of the Pistons,
In this conversation, if I say the name Ben Johnson, everybody out there who is a Bears fan is thinking I'm talking about their head coach. But there was a Ben Johnson before Ben Johnson from Canada, a sprinter who what year would this have been? Was it 88, 92? I don't remember. It was an Olympics, Summer Olympics. Ben Johnson was faster than Carl Lewis. And he said at the time, I still remember hearing the voice of Charlie Jones on NBC yelling 979. And that was the timing for Ben Johnson. So he got the gold medal, and then he had to do the drug test. And we had a problem, Canada, because he tested positive for all of the things that were banned. And in one of the really rare instances of being able to experience or witness justice, they took his gold medal back. They literally retracted it. And Ben Johnson, forever known as a cheating pariah in Olympic history, or at least one who got caught. Right now, there are others who have cheated. And to this day, I think if you bring up his name outside of Chicago Bears circles, people think, oh yeah, that guy cheated on a global stage. So I think that's a fine pick for being somewhere on the list of villains.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I remember? I remember watching the makeup ceremony when Carl Lewis got the gold.
I forgot about that.
Given to him, however long it took. I don't know how much time had passed until they stripped Johnson of the gold. So Lewis gets the gold medal, and they tried to recreate the atmosphere and everything else. And I remember thinking, boy, this is really lame for me just as a fan. What a drag!
It was the games were done. Yeah.
Yeah, what a drag for Carl Lewis. It was, I think it was the '88 Olympics in Seoul, Korea, where it happened, because I was just finishing up high school, and I kind of remember that. And but man, what a bummer for Carl Lewis. And so that's where Ben Johnson, not only did he cheat the sport, but he robbed somebody else of their moment in the glory.
Carl Lewis, by the way, complete non sequitur here that has nothing to do with our conversation, went on to sing one of the worst all-time national anthem renditions we've ever heard in our history. So, and threw out a first pitch that nearly killed the mascot. But man, could that guy run? So, okay, Kip Rogers has nominated John McEnroe as one of the all-time sports villains. What are you doing with Johnny Mac? And you have got to be kidding me. Are you serious?
Yeah, he's not on my villain list even for a second. And probably because he's American. If he was like some other nationality and displaying the antics that he regularly did on the tennis court, he probably would have bothered me. But because he was American, I could tolerate it and saw no issue with it. Sorry, Kip.
Well, plus I think McEnroe realized the value in marketing his theatrics.
Yeah.
And therefore hit the accelerator, and look what he's still doing in the commentating booth. He's really good, really highly regarded, but he still does exhibition matches where in every one of them he has to pretend to be really angry and yell at the umpire there. Let me give you a boxing showdown here for who ranks higher on your villain list. In real life, we've got Mike Tyson, who is by far my most entertaining boxer to watch in his prime. Just terrifying, entering the ring in the black shoes with no socks and a towel with a hole cut on it, while the other guy's coming in the silk robe and all this stuff. And Mike just walks in and just pulverizes the guy. It's just over every time.
Yeah.
So he's on one side because Mike had some personal issues. You may recall a prison stint. Whether or not you want to get into the whole setup or the Don King thing, Mike had issues and still largely does. Versus Ivan Drago. If he dies, if what he did to Apollo Creed, if he dies, he dies. What do we do with Ivan Drago versus Mike Tyson if only one of them can make the villain list? Where are you going?
Oh, well, if we're going to open the villain list up to like movie characters, then I'm all about Drago being a much bigger villain than Tyson.
Yeah. How about real life? Where's Tyson for you in real life?
Tyson for me is a tragic figure that got in with the wrong people and that kind of thing. And he's definitely a villain. He probably wouldn't be in my top 5 because boxing is a violent sport to begin with. And so I kind of enjoyed watching him just the whole everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face kind of stuff, Right. That to me was actually entertaining and everything else. And so he's there's a bit of a tragic side to his story just because of all the other stuff that was spiraling out of control in his life. So that's what I do with him.
I think Mike Tyson takeaway, not only was he just an incredibly electric performer in the ring, but the other side of it is how somebody with absolutely no moral foundation or mentorship, because after Cus D'Amato died, which was his mentor and the guy that taught him everything and took him through everything, when Cus died, Tyson was basically just on his own. He earned somewhere in the neighborhood, and he'll tell you this himself, in his one-man show that he does still in Vegas and other places, he does the story of his life. And in his one-man show, Tyson talks about how he made $350 million in the boxing ring and went broke.
Yeah.
And without any sort of a moral underpinning, and while you still have Don King in your life, you're destined for bankruptcy. I mean, you talk about, in fact, Paul, let me do a revision to my list. Now I'm getting angry.
Okay.
Because I read the book called The Life and Crimes of Don King, and there are more ruined African-American boxers' lives because of that guy than any other manager. I mean, Colonel Parker did nothing to Elvis compared to what Don King did to so many of these athletes. So he's definitely going to be on my list. Okay, that's my long ramble while your signal reset. Who's next for you?
Okay, well, if we've got your blood pressure going a little bit, I'm going to go in the category of because they cheated.
Okay.
And I'm sorry. I'm talking about Coach Harbaugh.
I knew you were.
Talking about Coach Harbaugh. I know that he is still revered. This is that thing. If he's your hometown guy, you can overlook or just ignore or accept or justify any kind of actions. But I'm telling you, outside of the Ann Arbor and the immediate surroundings, there's this whole thing that follows him around. A great coach, has been wildly successful in the NFL and with Michigan, but the fact that he's got now this label of cheater makes him a villain for a whole bunch of people.
It does. You're right. And what I'm trying to grasp a hold of is what is the crime he's charged with? What's the one or two that would be hung on him? Obviously, you're not talking about the cheeseburger thing, but what is it that is the top of the list of when you're in the courtroom, Your Honor, Exhibit A is this?
I think it's what I hear the most is lack of institutional control, just because of all of the things that happened on his watch in the Michigan football program. And there's a list of them and everything. So I just think he's going to be, there's got to be a face of it. It's not going to be Ward Manuel because he's the AD and nobody knows who he is. And so it's got to be Harbaugh. And then he left right at the time when things started to get heated and everything else. And then Sharon Moore got over promoted and scapegoated in some ways, you might say, that kind of thing. And so I think that's what most people, like when I'm up in Minnesota or when I'm in other places, that's what I hear most about. Well, we know Michigan cheated and it was on Harbaugh's watch. So he gets blamed for that, whether he knew or not. I don't think there's ever been any evidence that shows that he definitively was aware of everything that was going on, but it happened on his watch.
Well, and the other part of that is when you're recounting the sins of Harbaugh at Michigan, I often hear people talk about what you just did, the institutional control. I really don't hear as much angst over the whole Connor Stallions thing. Yeah. I think most people who know ball in some way, shape, or form understand that every program's trying to find the signals of the opponent. And if they were more creative about it, that's, I guess, kind of good for them. But I understand you have to go there with Coach Harbaugh. And in the maize and blue world, we would love to have him back as an honorary captain at any game coming up this season. Oh, it's probably not going to happen. The show cause thing kind of puts a damper on some of that.
Okay, let me give you a different one from football. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Are they on your villain list? And what do you think about those guys?
They're not. They deflated a football, which is probably the most comical air quotes around the word scandal that I've ever heard of in my life.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the deflated football stats were worse than the properly inflated football stats. There were 2 interceptions with the deflated football. And I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm obviously a Brady fan. I think people dislike them because of their success. That would be in your 4th category. And because Belichick is just a jerk. He's just not a nice guy. He wasn't then. Maybe he is now. I heard him on an interview on Pardon My Take, and he was fantastic talking just the X's and O's and the history of the game and the stuff that if he were a professor, you would sit there and listen to for as long as he wanted to go. But from a likability standpoint, that is certainly not Coach Belichick. But I don't know otherwise what they did that would put them in a villain category except for dominate for the better part of Brady's career.
Yeah, it's kind of like Patrick Mahomes, right? Why does everyone hate Patrick Mahomes and claim that he gets preferential treatment from the officials and everything else? Because he wins a stinking lot of games. That's the only reason, right?
Where's Pete Rose for you? Is he on the villain list?
Yeah, he is, but it's hard to say that with enthusiasm now in the days of sponsored by FanDuel and DraftKings and ESPN Bet and all the other things. But what he did was outside the bounds, and I get that. So he's
it's so funny. It's like people who are mad at Pete in this era are not understanding the context, because now everything he did, except for the betting on his own team, everything he did now you can do on your phone. And in some ways, you kind of think of him as a sympathetic, misguided character who had such passion for the game, but obviously he played into the villain role. I will say this: it made him far more money to not be in the Hall of Fame and to be able to go to card shows and collectible shows and be the sympathetic martyr. It made him far more money than if Commissioner Selig had said back in the day, he's not playing anymore, we're good to go. I would expect that we'll see Manfred probably lift the ban at some point and to let him in. A couple names as we wrap up this whole villain conversation. Lance Armstrong. Again, a sport we don't care that much about, but he's man, it was a vehement. In fact, let's put it into a church pew sports context. When Jimmy Swaggart was denying everything, and then they came out with the full evidence of his misdeeds, and he then had the tearful confession. I still remember seeing it. And then he largely disappeared from public view because of all of it, the hypocrisy. Same thing, Lance Armstrong, angry denials, would never do such a thing, live strong, the bracelets, all this stuff. And then tested positive. And for some of those who were inspired by his live strong message of overcoming cancer, they turned on him. And man, it's the indignance of the denial is probably what was the biggest, what did him in more than anything else. So anybody else you want to put on the list of considerations?
I want to give you a chance to give your knee-jerk reaction to the name Jerry Jones.
Oh, I think of him as a cartoon character. I don't think of him as a villain. And his lawsuit against the league back when he wanted Pepsi and the league had Coke, and he won because he didn't want to share the revenue. He wanted his own sponsor. He won and really changed the landscape for individual teams to generate their own revenue. So yeah, he's a cartoon character, but I don't have him on my villain list.
Okay. The only other one on my list that I do want to mention, and it's because it's very personal to me, is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Oh. In 1985, when the Bears were in the middle of their historic season, I think it was game 11, they went to Miami and they lost to Dan Marino and the Dolphins, and it was their first loss of the season. And they showed all the players from the 72 Miami Dolphins, who was the only team in NFL history to go undefeated for an entire season. And those guys were all sitting around lighting up cigars and celebrating the Bears lost. And oh my word. Yeah. I still remember where I was sitting and how my blood started to boil, because the 72 Miami Dolphins, their attitude just so.
They still do it. The Patriots had that run and they were about to match them, and the Giants end up beating them, and there they go with the stogies lit up. So yeah, those guys, those who are still around will probably do that until they're no longer around, would be my guess.
Most of the time when someone holds a record, they say records are made to be broken, and I'm cheering for the guy and blah, blah, blah. Not the 70 Dolphins.
No, they don't want that one ever to be broken. And if the league goes to 18 games, which everybody expects, it's probably not going to be, because there won't be anybody healthy enough to play the entire season. Hey, thank you to everybody in the Church Pew chat for suggesting your sports villains. I know we didn't get to every name, but we tried to hit some of the highlights, and we'll do it again. This is fun stuff. Meanwhile, let's dive into Holy Discontent.
It's time to blow off some steam. Get it off your chest. Rant about what's most bothering you.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
It's time for Holy Discontent.
Mine is NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. He did an interview with he did one with McAfee. He did one with Dan Patrick. He's kind of making the rounds since the season is heading down to the Final Four. And he has no solutions for the flopping thing. He is working on the tanking thing, but there's no solutions offered by the commissioner for the flopping thing. And he talks about how it's just really an officiating decision-making thing. And if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. Well, then stop letting it work. And there is in existence already on the books in the NBA, much like there is in soccer, a technical foul for embellishment or for faking or for flopping.
Right.
It was called, I believe it was called twice all year. Just get the rule off the books. That's all I'm at. Just get it off the books. Let's stop pretending. Just get it off the books. All right, your turn, Paul.
Yeah, Adam Silver's on a crash course with Roger Goodell under sports commissioners' villainry, right? Okay, my holy discontent, here's the theme here, is with NBA flopping. I think we have a couple of guys in this year's NBA playoffs who have become villains, SGA. Nobody wants to see the Thunder. Few people outside of Oklahoma City want to see the Thunder win win the NBA championship because they just can't stomach the way SGA tries to bait calls. Harden was in this same camp, but they got eliminated, and so nobody cares about the beard anymore. But I think we have Michael Wilbon talking on ESPN about SGA, and I think this is just an awesome little soundbite.
If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes back to back and he's on deck and he enters next season as a two-time champion and two-time MVP, guess what? There'll be kids out in the playground learning how to flop.
Oh, no.
Listen. You know what, Alan?
Please, no.
People may not.
Jay's leaving. Jay's leaving.
Jay, but you guys know I'm right.
Wilbon is right.
He is right.
Kids see what they see. That's why their kids are shooting threes thinking they're Steph Curry. That's why they imitate what they see. And there are kids. There's a famous clip on Instagram of like a 5-6-year-old in a junior league flopping and looking for the calls, and it's all because of that stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That is good stuff. Let's go over to that guy.
Right now, this minute, today, this week, I am the man.
I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, yeah, that guy this week, someone doing it the right way, is Delta Airlines. I texted you and David from a plane.
What?
Last week, I think it was, because the NBA and NHL playoffs were on. I'm sure you remember this. And I was so excited because I pulled up, and well, first I noticed that the games that night were all on Amazon Prime. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not watching any sports on this flight. So I pull up the live TV feed on the seat back in front of me. And there in the channel list is Amazon Prime Sports. So Delta Airlines is now offering, I had to text you guys a screenshot of it because you didn't believe me, right? Delta is now offering Amazon Prime Sports. So whenever there's a sporting event that's on Amazon and you happen to be on a flight, you can actually watch it just like it was on NBC or CBS or whatever.
Pretty good.
Well done, Delta.
Sports bars and restaurants are going to have to figure this out because they're going to lose the people who would come there to watch games since Adam Silver decided to put them on channels that, you can't even get with your rabbit ears and aluminum foil. That guy is involved in a story that happened a few weeks ago, and I've actually held on to this note to myself since then because I just haven't had time to work it in. His name is Max Quinn. He's a Guardians fan, a Cleveland Guardians fan, and a few weeks ago, it was foul ball or home run. I don't remember which, but came into the stands and a little girl grabbed it. And Max, who was a good-sized, bearded, heavy-set guy, ripped it out of her hands on TV and took it. And didn't leave the stadium, just sat at his seat. And this little girl was so crushed. And the cameras, of course, stay on the scene. The Guardians PR staff bring her a prize kit. So they make it up to her. But this guy, as you can imagine, Paul, in the world of social media, this guy is put on blast. I mean, he is toast. And it was not a record-setting ball. It was just a ball. Well, after it got bad enough and the heat got turned up high enough, Max Quinn went on a local Cleveland television station to say he was sorry. And this is pretty cool. I think you're going to enjoy this.
First of all, I want to just put out an apology and just say I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the family. I'm sorry to the parents, the little girl, her brother. I'm so utterly sorry for everything that's transpired. Like you said, it was a heat of the moment thing. I made a really bad decision, a lot of bad decisions, and I'm paying for it online. And I understand the backlash. I understand everything that everyone has said to me, but there was no malintent, and I did give it back to her. But I didn't do it in a timely fashion. And if I could do it all over again, I would have just grabbed it, given it to her, and been done with it.
Well, Evelyn, we have some sound from her, and she wants to say something to you right now.
Hi, Max. Thanks for giving us the ball back. We forgive you for it. We know the internet has been going wild over this. We hope they forgive you.
I appreciate that from Evelyn. Thank you so much for saying that, and thank you to their whole family.
I mean, that's just cool.
Yeah.
Right? So if you screw up, you man up. You fess up, and it was really sweet of that little girl to come in and do that. So well done, all parties concerned. And in this world, there can be good endings to things that don't start out that good, and that was a good ending. So let's wrap things up with our 3-minute message.
Homer, I'd like you to remember Matthew 7:26, the foolish man who built his house on sand.
And you remember Matthew 21:17.
And he left them and went out of the city into Bethany, and he lodged there?
Yeah. Think about it.
Think about it. It's been fun talking about villains. It's been fun talking about the different categories of villains. The last name that I would put on the list, since this is Church Pew Sports, would be Jesus, right? Isaiah 53, Jesus was despised and rejected by mankind. Let's think about our categories, Bill. Partially because of his style of play. He didn't come in as the king or the hero the way that people wanted him to, right? He played for a rival. There were people in government that did not want to see him be who he was going to become, right? Jesus was, in his day, a villain. And there's plenty of scripture that talks about this. In fact, because we are associated with Jesus, because those who were associated with Jesus at the time also were despised and hated, Jesus had to talk to his followers and encourage them with that. He said, in John 15, he said, if the world hates you, know that it has hated you know that it has hated me before it hated you, right? And then there's this great verse in Matthew 5 where it says, God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. So villains come in all shapes and sizes, and it's kind of weird to think about Jesus as a villain, but in his day, I think you could make a case that he was. And we're here for it, right? He's still our king. He's still our leader, and we follow him. I will resist the temptation to make it to push the analogy too far and say, hey, it's like blind Detroit Pistons fans thinking Bill Laimbeer is the best thing ever or whatever. But as Jesus followers, when we face opposition or when people look down on us or make fun of us because of who our king is, we're told to celebrate that and be happy about that, because there is a great reward awaiting for us in heaven. So let's just be encouraged by that this week.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you all for being with us. And if you have suggestions for those who should be added to the villainous list, connect with us on Facebook or on YouTube or on X for Church Pew Sports. And we are going to do our best to keep live streaming these videos. But you can also get the audio recording anytime at churchpewsports.com. You'll find every episode we have ever done. Good to have you with us. Thanks all. And thank you, Paul. We'll talk to you all next time on Church Pew Sports. Sports.